Hey guys, this is Sean Michael from WinBeta, and today I'm going to be going through how Bing is approaching the 2015 Men's NCAA Basketball Tournament. So if you go over here to Bing, and you just type in Bing Bracket, similar to their Oscar results that were across the page or Cricket World Cup score, you just get a full page here of the bracket before you get to any search results down here at the bottom. I did expand it a bit with the arrow just to preload it before the video, but Bing's, I like that layout. Some people might not like it because you don't get directly to the stories, but in this case, it's actually very convenient. I'm a big fan. So the first page here is just results. Obviously, there aren't any results right now. These are going to be updated as the tournament continues, but I wanted to get this video up to help you with your bracket before any of the deadlines for any of you trying to turn in brackets. So they have Bing Predicts here. This is based on 10 years worth of data that they've compiled from the NCAA. And a lot of it actually apparently wasn't public data, so they have a lot of information going into this. So it's led to a few interesting upsets, and I'm going to be going through the bracket here in just a little bit. But first I want to show you some of the cool features that are on Bing. So when you're creating a bracket, you can make a new bracket, you can autofill the one that they have here, you can save it, and you can compete on NCAA.com. So it's a pretty nice feature to just be able to import it, not have to click through every time, especially to prevent kind of accidental clicks or that sort of thing. If you really feel strong about a dark horse team coming up, it'd be a shame to click something else, because without doing it in handwriting, it's a little easier to make mistakes. So I've already autofilled my bracket here. I'm going to be going through, but based on what I did there, they have these percent chances of certain victories actually happening. So I'm going to go through this. I know usually they go through region, but just for the layout, I'm going to go ahead and just do it by how they appear on the screen. So here's a good example. Number 1 overall seed Kentucky. They went undefeated in the regular season and in the SEC tournament, and they have a 98% chance of defeating Manhattan. Not a big surprise, as the 16 seeds never defeated a 1, but a good example of Bing knowing what it's doing. You see another 1 seed like Villanova has a 99% chance of victory. I don't think Kentucky's going to take that as a slight, probably just going to take it out on Manhattan. So, and you go through here, you have an upset, number 12 seed Buffalo, the Buffalo Bison beating the Mountaineers of West Virginia. They actually list that at 67% chance likely to win. So as you can see here on Bing, if you put your cursor over a team or even a match, you get the stats, just a very basic set of stats for each team. Percent chance likely to win the game, overall record, their last 5 games of a trend, average points per game, and free throw percentage. So in the tournament, a lot of these games come down to they're very close to the end of the game. So you can see free throw percentage is going to play out to be pretty important. But you'll see here something like a trend. See, the Mountaineers here went 2-3 in their last 5 games. Buffalo's gone 5-0. So it's not surprising that they give them a bit of momentum. And almost every year, a 12 seed beats a 5 seed in the first round. So at least Bing showing again here that they know something about bracketology. Then you have Maryland playing Valparaiso, and then ultimately beating Buffalo before they head on to face Kentucky, who just won over, or is predicted to win over Cincinnati. Obviously, these are all in the future tense and not guaranteed to happen. But then it has Kentucky just advancing on there to the, I believe that'd be the Elite 8. So then on the other side of the bracket in the East, you have Villanova just steamrolling through everybody, going on to the Elite 8. You don't have any other major upsets in that portion of the bracket. So just go ahead and continue here to the second half of the Midwest and second half of the East. You can see a team here, Texas, is listed as 68% likely to upset Butler. Texas, a lot of people thought wasn't even supposed to be in the tournament. A lot of people had big gripe with the committee for even putting him in there. So having them upset number 6 would be a bit of a news story and a bit of a shock as well. Texas has a terrible ranking against top 100 teams. I believe they went 3-12 throughout the year against the RPI top 100. Well, they end up running into Notre Dame in this bracket, so that doesn't last very long for them. And then to get to Notre Dame's matchup, you have Wichita State, who they actually have not only beating Indiana, which they're favored to win, but also a win over Kansas, the 2 seed. So that's the first major upset, I'd say. It's a second round upset, which are a lot, I'd say a lot bigger deal than a first round upset, unless it's something like probably a 13 beating a 4 or anything bigger than that. So when you get into the second round, Wichita State beating Kansas be a big upset, but it still has them ultimately losing to Notre Dame, who's going on to face Kentucky. So in the second half of the East, you don't have a ton of upsets, but you do have one streak of an upset featuring the Dayton Flyers. This is the Dayton Flyers, who I believe are coming out of one of those first 4 games that formerly known as play-in games. Has them over number 6 Providence, over number 3 Oklahoma, before they run into Virginia. So that's the major upset in this bracket. It'd be interesting, almost every year somebody makes a run. And if you looked at someone's bracket before the tournament, the one that actually gets it ultimately right is probably going to look a bit like a fool before the tournament. So I'm a bit surprised by Bing's choice here. They might be just going for a dark horse. It might be based on those 10 years of data. I guess it's probably a bit more mathematical, but it's still a bit surprising to have them going over Oklahoma. We'll go down here into the second half of the bracket, or before we do, as you can see, there aren't a lot of low seeds there. So they have the Elite 8. They only have 1 3 seed, 1 1, 2, and 3. That's not a lot of chalk, or it's a lot of chalk going into the Elite 8 there. See if they can redeem themselves in the second half here. So second half, or first half of the West and South brackets. You have Wisconsin going through all the way to the Elite 8. Not a lot of upsets on that half of the bracket. There's a little one there that we'll get into in the second half about BYU. But in the first half of the bracket, pretty much chalk. First half of the South bracket, centered in Houston, you have Duke going through all the way through to the Elite 8. And you don't have a lot of major upsets here as well. I do want to highlight this matchup. We have one upset in a bit, but we have Stephen F. Austin playing Utah. It predicts it as a loss for Stephen F. Austin. I predict it as a loss for Stephen F. Austin. But if you want to have a little bit of fun, check your Twitter feed when this game is going on, because every time there's a school with someone having just a name, Stephen F. Austin, that sort of thing, it kind of captivates Twitter if they're winning, because people continue to make the joke, one dude's beating the whole Utah team. So a little bit of fun Twitter banter there. I don't think it's going to happen, but if they're winning at any point in the game, I can almost guarantee that someone's going to tweet about that. As here, Eastern Washington over Georgetown. This would be a bit of an embarrassment over Georgetown. They have a lot of losses in the first round in the last few years. Even when they were a 2 seed, they lost to Florida Gulf Coast, who went on their little bit of a run. And it would be pretty embarrassing if another high-seeded Georgetown team lost to a 13 seed here, in the case that they have predicted in Eastern Washington. But all is not, because Bing continues to go with chalk in the later rounds and has Duke over Utah leading into the Elite 8. So last bit of the bracket here. You have a bit of an upset that you may have seen earlier at the bottom of the screen. They have BYU, who a lot of people thought shouldn't have even been in the tournament, defeating number 6 seed Xavier. And then you have pretty much chalk the rest of the way here, even leading into the later rounds. So Bing continuing a trend there. They don't have a lot of dark horse teams kind of running Cinderella style into the Elite 8. And they complete that over here, but it is their lowest seed in the Elite 8 that they have. They have Iowa State coming through as the number 3 seed in this bracket, and the way that they predict that they will get there is over pretty much favorites. So you can see that this really doesn't have a ton of upsets. There's a little 10 over a 7 here predicted by Bing, but mostly it's chalk. So Final Four is going to come down to, according to Bing, Kentucky, Arizona, Villanova, and Duke. A lot of people thought those could have been the 4 number 1 seeds anyway, so that's not a ton of an upset. And then they have Kentucky over Duke. You can also, if you were doing your own bracket, there's a spot in Bracket Builder for you to actually add a tiebreaker. If 2 people somehow did end up with the same amount of points, you can throw that in there. So it's really interesting to look at Bing addressing something large like this. The NCAA tournament has 68 games. They even do bother to predict the play-in games, though most of your brackets probably aren't going to require you to do that. For Bing, it turned into a bit of a necessity because they actually have them winning 2 rounds in the full NCAA tournament there. I'm not too surprised that they pick mostly chalk. Computers are going to lean that way. I don't think it's going to get 100%, but if I had to be honest, it's probably about as good as anything else. I've seen people win pools and brackets and that sort of thing, picking based on what mascot they'd win in a fight, what color they like more, and that sort of thing. So except on a national scale, most pools kind of have somebody who knows very little about basketball who does really well, someone who knows a lot about basketball doing very poorly, and who knows where the winner's going to come from. But it's a really cool feature for Bing to do this sort of thing. I hope that they continue that in the future. Anyway, guys, I'm Shawn Michael for WinBeta. Hopefully, we can have a few more bracket breakdowns, that sort of thing, featuring Bing and other upcoming sporting events in the future. Bye-bye.